What if I told you that the key to a better 2026 lies in improving these six relationships? Would you believe me? Hey everyone, this is Dr. Alexis M. Your educator coach, your wellness coach, your friend, and your educator bestie, I guess. If you are new to my YouTube channel, a little bit about me, I'm an educator with over 15 years of experience in education at all levels. I'm a certified wellness coach. And one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about today is the power of relationships. So, my research focuses on what do educators need to do to cultivate and sustain healthy learning spaces where all people can thrive. And when I say all people, I'm talking about students, staff, you in the classroom, you running the school, all people. And one of the things that I've done throughout my research is that I have studied educators who have been in the classroom for years and years and years, and examining what are the things that keep them in the classroom, keep them in education, and keep them thriving in this profession. And you guys, we all know it ain't the money. So let's get into it. So through my research, one of the things that I have discovered is there's six key areas that educators who have been in a classroom for decades, they have in common. And so with these key areas, when you put them all together, these are the areas that have allowed them to come in the classroom, come into schools, and create welcoming, inclusive, belonging spaces where all people can thrive because they have done the work to take care and steward well these relationships. Now, I got to give you this disclaimer very early on. These relationships have nothing to do with the people outside of themselves. The educators that I have studied, the educators that I have worked with, the educators who have mentored me, the educators who I have read their research and just watched them from afar, they didn't worry about everybody else. They didn't worry about what the students did. They didn't worry about what families were doing. They didn't worry about what their admin was doing, what the state was doing, what the superintendent was doing, what the presidential administration was doing. They didn't worry about all those things. Yes, those things impacted their day-to-day work and what they probably were able to do in the classroom in some shape or form, but they did not let it shape how they were going to show up in the classroom, if that made sense, right? And so I study educators who have been in the classroom since the 80s, since the 90s, since 2000s. Like I have teachers who taught me who are still in the classroom, pre-K teachers who are just going into retirement. They have seen the ebbs and flows of the education profession. And so for me and my researcher brain, I was curious to know what kept them in the classroom despite all of the changes. And let's jump into it. So the first thing was relationship with mind and spirit. The first thing that jumped out to me was that the educators who stay in the classroom for years and years to come, they have a healthy relationship with their mind, they have a healthy relationship with their spirit, and they have healthy practices that keep them grounded. One of the things that was very evident was this clinging to a spiritual grounding practice, prayer, devotional, church, those type of practices that connected them bigger to something other than themselves. The practices that they clung to, the beliefs that they clung to, the spiritual beliefs that they clung to, those were the beliefs that kept them grounded each day. I think about one of my good mentors, and Jesus Christ was her Lord and Savior. She was a believer, and she would cling to daily scripture and daily Bible verses to help keep her grounded, help keep her connected, and help keep her sane in the profession. The other thing that I noticed is they had a daily practice of some form of prayer, mindfulness, meditation, devotional to just keep their mind and their spirit intact. And like I said, grounded. And so whether it was starting the day off in prayer, it was spending the morning in solitude and in silence. It was coming into their classroom, closing their door before students came in, and just being present with themselves. They had a healthy way of taking care of their mind and their spirit. One of the things that a tool I wish I would have had when I was in the classroom is the idea of positive intelligence. And so positive intelligence, and if you are familiar with any research on positive intelligence is this, hey, we look at emotional intelligence, right? Positive intelligence is not about positive thinking, but it's about strengthening your brain to view everything as a gift or opportunity. So even when you run into a challenge in the day-to-days of teaching or education, you view those challenges not as obstacles, but a gift or an opportunity. For me, I always like to say that God is doing something to me or through me, and it is my quest to figure out what it is, right? But the research on positive intelligence, one of the things it focuses on is what you have are your judge, which is this thought that everything is, it's like something happens, your judge is primary saboteur, and it is automatically categorizing things as good or bad. We all have a judge in us, and we've developed this judge when we were like 5 years old and a little child, and this judge was meant to protect us and keep us in survival mode. And so with positive intelligence, this judge says that immediately at the onset of anything, this judge is saying that this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And then with the judge, you have 10 saboteurs. These saboteurs are there again to protect you. The one thing I tell everybody is your brain is your biggest op. Your brain does not like you. Despite how much our society has evolved, technology has evolved, our economy has evolved, the way we do things has evolved, but our brain is still stuck in caveman mode, right? So our brain is constantly scanning fight or flight, danger. And when it scans or senses that anything may be a danger to us and it doesn't like the way that it feels, it is going to put up a blockage, or it's going to put up some type of barrier to protect us, right? And I know that we often kind of talk about, the nervous system, especially when it relates to children in our classrooms and children who have experienced a sense of trauma. But we also have to, as educators, look at our own nervous system and look at our own brain and the way our brains are trying to protect us from the dangers that it perceives in our classrooms. So like one of the reasons why we see when a student has some undesirable behavior and we are disrupted by the student's behavior, it is not the behavior itself, but the behavior is making our brains think that we are in danger and therefore it has to protect us. So just as much as we have to bring mindfulness and practices to calm our students' nervous systems down, we need to be intentional as educators to bring same practices into our own daily lives to calm our nervous system down, right? And so again, positive intelligence says that everything is a gift or an opportunity. And what it does is it says that everything is, the judge is deciding everything is good or bad. And you have these saboteurs, and these 10 saboteurs like hypervigilance, the avoider, the controller, these saboteurs are coming in and they are trying to protect you. So for example, my top saboteur is the hypervigilance. The hypervigilance is always scanning the room and watching for danger, and it has to protect me because everything is dangerous, right? And so if I am not mindful, that this hypervigilance is out there. Everything is going to be looked at and viewed through a lens of danger, and I have to save myself. I have to protect myself, right? Because, and if you know my story, and I've shared my story in my book, Real Love Strategies for Reaching Students When They See No Way Out, I've talked about it here on my channel, but growing up in an environment that was, full of trauma and traumatic events all around me, my brain has now said that, Alexis, I have to protect you by scanning for danger everywhere because you are not safe. And if I don't save you and you don't save yourself, nobody else is going to come and save you. Right. And so using positive intelligence, I have to look at everything because first I have to name that, hey, Judge, this is not like, I don't need you to protect me. Thank you, but I don't need you. Hypervigilance, we have nothing to be worried about. We have nothing to be scared about. But what is going on? And is this really happening? And if so, what is the impact or the outcome that it can have on me? Or do I just need to do something right now to calm down my nervous system? Okay. So, one relationship, first one is the relationship with their mind, relationship with their spirit. If you find a way to strengthen and improve your relationship with your mind, relationship with your spirit, that is one way that you can transform your 2026 in the way you show up in a classroom or school. The second way is the relationship with time. Like, look, some of the thoroughbreds in education, they know that time matters. Why? Because they're not trying to be at that school all day, every day. So they were very intentional about protecting the time and using the time that was given. So conference periods were for planning and preparing. They weren't hanging out in the hallway, clack-a-lacking. They weren't hanging out in the teacher's lounge, gossiping. They maximized every ounce of time that was given to them during the workday. Now, it's not saying that work did not go home with them. Work did go home with them, but they also were intentional about what and when went home with them. The other thing that I noticed is that they realized that everything did not have to be done, right? There's some things you're going to give 100%, and some things your 80% or your 70% might just be good enough. All in the name of maximizing the time that they spent during the instructional day and the time that they spent outside the instructional day. They were very, very protective of their time. You couldn't just knock on their door and come and take up their whole conference period. They were going to come in, they were going to greet you, they was going to give you, the loving that you needed, but you weren't going to sit their entire conference period and waste their time. Why? Because they knew that the more time they spent engaging in things that were not relevant to the things that they needed to get done during the instruction day, they would have to then use that time outside of school. That meant they were taking time away from their family. They were taking time away from being present in their community. They were taking time away from their loved one. They were taking time away from spending time with themselves. So every single second mattered. Yes, they were involved in schools, activities. Yes, they may have sponsored a club, but again, all of those things, they understood there was a time and a place. And if this did not fit into their time and their schedule, it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. And then the other thing too is they protected the time that was not related to school hours, right? So if things were happening for the family on the weekend, they were going to be there. That was a priority, right? If they had PTO or days off, they took that time with themselves. So they had a concept of time and understanding of protecting their time because they knew that the importance of using your time responsibly during the instructional day. And let me say this. When it comes to using time, they had systems. They had systems that guided every single thing that they did, from how they graded papers to how they contacted parents to how they planned lessons, how they reflected on data. All of the things had a system in place, and they knew how to delegate and tap into the people who could help them make the most of their time. So when we talk about delegate, yeah, you can slide students a quiz and an answer key and let them grade themselves, right? So they knew, they tapped into all those little tips and tricks and used those to their advantage to maximize their time. So they had a healthy relationship with their mind and their spirit. They had a healthy relationship with their time. This is the one that may have to get a lot of people together, because this is the one we don't talk about. The educators who have stayed in the profession, they have longevity in the profession. One of the things that they have done is they had a strong relationship with their money. Yeah, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. But hear me out on this one. They knew education didn't pay a lot of money. And honestly, they did not go into the profession looking to make a lot of money, because we all know historically educators have not made a lot of money. Why? Because the history around education is associated to women's work. And that's a whole nother conversation. But they had a healthy relationship with their money. I have a colleague who, when she was not teaching business Monday through Friday as a teacher, she was consulting and providing financial literacy on the side, and that was her side business. One of the things that I learned from her was she had a budget. She stuck to a budget. She knew her budget. She knew her money, but she didn't allow money to make her, right? She told her money where to go. Money didn't tell her where to go. She had investment properties. She had other side things that she was doing to bring in money. And the reason why this is important is because when she came into the school building and she was in the presence of her students, that financial stress and pressure was not weighing on her back. Some of the times when we're showing up in our classrooms and schools stressed out, mentally exhausted, emotionally, 90% of the time, it has nothing to do with what's happening in the school building. Nothing to do with what's happening in the school building, but a lot to do with what's happening outside the school building. And a great percentage of educators are showing up in their classrooms and in schools, not from the pressure of things that are happening in education, but from the pressure of things that are happening outside of education, right? And I know it's 2025 going into 2026, and we all know the economy has been, but one of the things, like I said, these are from educators that I have studied over the years, and they all had in common a great grasp on their money. They didn't make a lot of money, but they managed and steward well the money that they did make, and they told their money where to go, not vice versa. Money didn't tell them where to go. Money didn't tell them how to show up. They were very intentional about every single dollar that came in. So these are the educators who they were often talking about the meals that they were planning. They were often to eat for dinner. They often brought their lunch to school. They weren't just running out on lunch and going and getting McDonald's or Jack in the Box. Again, they were saving, they were budgeting, they were planning. And so that is the third characteristic in the third relationship that educators who have longevity in the profession that they focused on. The fourth thing is your environment. Your environment plays a huge role in how you show up. Like the research shows that the more cluttered the environment is, the more cluttered the mind is. And so from the educators that I've studied, they typically, again, systems drove everything. They had a way of making sure that their classroom was in order and their home environment was in order. Because when everything around them was in order, they had the freedom of the mind to be more creative, to be more reflective, to be more calm, because chaos wasn't all around them. So Relationship with your mind and your spirit, relationship with your time, relationship with your money, relationship with your home environment. The other one, relationship with your body. They had a positive relationship with their body. And what I mean by positive relationship with their body is that they were very intentional about what they put into their body throughout the day, meaning they weren't starting the morning off with two Dr. Peppers, and then by lunchtime they were going to have two Dr. Peppers, and they weren't walking through the hallway snacking on chips. And if you were like me, it was gummy worms and Dr. Pepper. But no, these are educators who, even if they couldn't get to the gym before or after school, they were walking the hallways, right? Walking the hallways, getting their steps in. They had some type of practice to where they understood and they knew that moving their body each day and intentionally moving their body and taking care of their body was what was going to keep them healthy and whole and allowing them to continue to show up in the profession. Relationship with their body, they were very mindful about what they put in their body. Again, these are the home cooked meals. We bring in our food, we pack in our lunches, we got dinner in a crock pot, dinner at home waiting for us because we prepared it before we went to work, because they were intentional about what they put in their body and the quality of foods. An apple a day was keeping the stress away for them. And then the sixth thing, but I think I want to add another one, but maybe I can fit this one into this. The sixth thing, the sixth relationship that they took seriously and prioritized was a relationship with their community. And when we talk about community, maybe I can put everything into this. Relationship with their community, relationship with their school community, relationship with their physical community, and relationship with their wider community. So their school community, they had a positive relationship with their school community. So these weren't the teachers who were constantly in the latest gossip happening on campus. These were the teachers that would show up when they needed to be showed up, when they needed to show up. These are the teachers who are supporting school initiatives and school causes. These are the teachers that you could tap into for support with professional development or ensuring that we're creating the welcome and inclusive spaces for our students. These are the teachers who you could directly connect them to the school's culture and the school's climate. These are the teachers that the students love to have, that the parents couldn't wait for their child to get into the classroom. These are the teachers who, when you are not even just teachers, these are the educators, when you needed something done, you can count on them to get it done. So they had a positive relationship with the school community. They were dependable. They were trustworthy. They showed up. Then they had a positive relationship with their physical community. Like, especially if they lived in a community with their school, they saw themselves as a staple part of their physical community. So these are the teachers that they were connected. You could see them in a local grocery store. You could see them at the local rec center. Their kids play at the local parks. Their kids play in the local sports leagues. You're running into them on Saturdays at the football games, and they didn't run from you like, oh my God, don't look at me. It's my weekend. I don't want nothing to do with you. But no, they embraced that they were, and they took this role seriously, that they were a community member. They were a staple in community, and they were a positive vessel in their community. Like, if you go back to the research, especially on the presence of Black teachers in educational spaces, Black teachers were deeply invested. And when I talk about Black teachers, I'm talking about civil rights movement, post-civil rights movement, but prior to Brown versus Board of Education and the deconstruction of Black schools. But when you look at what made Black schools so great was the presence of Black teachers as a staple within the Black community, and not just somebody you saw at school, but like they knew your mama, they knew your daddy, they knew your auntie and them. They saw themselves as an extension of your family. And not just like, and that's why it was like, okay, they were extension of your village. So when something happened at school, you knew that what happened at school was going to come back out of the school into your community, because the teachers or the educators prided themselves of being a part of your village. And then their wider community. Typically, educators who have longevity in the profession, they are deeply connected to their wider community, whether that is a community that is, rooted in a shared cultural identity, a shared ethnic identity, a shared religious identity. They had a healthy relationship with their community. And because they had a healthy relationship with their community, this community that they built was what gave them fuel, like Geneva Gay says. It refueled their reservoir of hope when the going got tough. And so these are the 6 relationships that, if you zoned in on these 6 relationships going into 2026, I guarantee you that focusing on these relationships, and again, not the relationships and what other people are doing, but how are you showing up with your time? How are you taking care of your time? How are you taking care of your mind and your spirit? How are you taking care of your money? What is your relationship like with your environment? What is your relationship like with your body? How are you stewarding your body? What is your relationship like with your school community, your physical community, your wider community? If you prioritize finding resolve with these 6 relationships, if you prioritize strengthening these 6 relationships, I can guarantee you that you will see a total transformation in how you show up in the classroom, or school, how you view being in the classroom or school, how you view students, families, communities, and the profession all together by tuning in and tuning out what's on the outside. So again, if I told you that improving these 6 relationships would transform your relationship with the education profession, would you believe it? I hope the answer is yes. Now go get to work. And I love for you to drop in the comments, what relationship are you going to focus on? How are we going to start 2026? All right. Goodbye.